If you've ever wanted to build cabinets for your shop or kitchen but didn't think you could, this video is going to show you just how easily it can be done. This cabinet features no visible pocket screws anywhere in its construction, fully adjustable shelf heights, and hidden hinges. Mine's mounted on this super awesome French cleat wall I built in the last video, so if you're wondering how to make one of those, go check that out. But if not, you could mount it to studs just as easily. These are the main tools that I used in the construction of the cabinet, plus a table saw. The three materials you're going to need is going to be some 3/4 inch plywood, some 1/4 inch plywood or MDF, and some 1x material of your choice. All right, so jumping right into things here. Just a heads up, you guys will see me use some additional tools to what I originally showed. Don't freak out. I really encourage everybody to just try to be creative. I think you can get by with a whole lot less than what I'm using here. What you just saw there is I'm ripping down my 3/4 plywood to the width of my cabinet, but I left it a little bit long so that I could go through on the table saw and clean up those edges. Then I cut them to length. The two side pieces are identical in length, and then the top and bottom pieces are a little bit different. The bottom piece is going to be 3/4 of an inch wider than the top piece so that it can recess in to the cabinet carcass. Here's what we're looking to cut out. Over on the table saw with my blade set at 3/8 of an inch and the fence set 3/4 of an inch in, exactly the width of one piece of plywood, I began to make my first cuts. This first cut we're going for 1/4 of an inch wide, so I take all of my pieces and go and rip the same line all the way down throughout them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to nudge the fence over just a little bit and make the cut again. You're going to want to go nice and slow here, using some of your 1/4 inch material to check the fitment as you go. You want a nice, snug fit that you don't need to press in too tightly. Now we start to cut out that dado where our bottom shelf is going to slide into place. The same process goes here. You're just going to make a cut, slide the fence over, make a cut, slide the fence over until your bottom shelf slides right in the groove, nice and tight. I did a quick dry fit to make sure everything was coming together as it should, and then I got to work making a jig for our adjustable shelf pins. On some scrap wood, I marked 1-inch increments starting from 6 inches in each direction, and went ahead and drilled all those holes out at the correct size for my shelf pins. Here I set the depth of my drill bit for those shelf pins using some blue painter's tape. Then we clamp the jig down and go to town drilling all the holes. Now grab some measurements for your back panel and stretchers. You want the back panel to be long enough to fit inside of the dado, but allow maybe 1/8 of an inch for movement in each direction. This Craig pocket hole jig is seriously The best $40 I've ever spent. If you don't have one, just bite the bullet and get one. After a quick sanding, we can begin to assemble the cabinet carcass. Start by putting your cabinet bottom and sides together with some wood glue. Then I attach this bottom stretcher piece. I flipped the carcass upside down and attached the top stretcher piece. But pay attention because I made a big mistake here. Sliding the back panel in. And this is about when I realized the mistake I made. I put the back stretcher piece on too far up to be able to allow my top panel in. No big deal. I pulled it out, attached my top panel first, and then threw the stretcher back on where it belongs. I used some brad nails to attach the top piece, but if you didn't want any exposed nail holes, you could easily just clamp that in and allow the glue to dry. And reinstalling that stretcher where it should have gone. And that's a completed carcass. Next, I started breaking down some of that 1x material for the face frame. I went ahead and ripped everything into 2-inch strips, and I cut it all long enough to have a 1/4 of an inch overhang all the way around. The Craig pocket hole jig hard at work again. I used some wood glue and brad nails to attach the face frame to the carcass. And here, I'm showing you how those adjustable shelf pins work. Pretty neat. To build the door, I again cut down some of that 1x material and ripped it into 2-inch strips. You want your rails to be 3/4 of an inch long here. Set the table saw blade to 3/8 of an inch and make a cut down the center of your board. Flip it on end and cut it again. You're going to use the same process where you nudge your fence over just enough, making passes until your 1/4 inch material fits into the slot perfectly. Do this to all 4 pieces. Now to cut the tenons, I'm going to use this crosscut sled that I made for my table saw, but I think you could probably get by with the miter gauge that comes with your table saw. If you need to, take a little bit of sandpaper to the tenons to make them fit nice and snug. You don't want them to be loose. A good rule of thumb is they shouldn't be so tight that you're afraid you're going to break the wood, but when you pick your piece up, they should hold themselves in place. Cut a piece of 1/4-inch plywood to fit inside of the dado the same way that we did on the cabinet carcass, and we're ready for assembly. Using a little wood glue on all of the tenons and some pipe clamps, I go ahead and just assemble all 5 pieces. If you have enough clamps, a couple clamps across the top of the door can help keep it from warping. After leaving the door to dry, I removed it from the clamps and gave it a quick sand. Then I used this concealed hinge jig to go ahead and drill holes for my hinges. If you didn't want to buy one of these, you don't need to use concealed hinges. I screwed the door to the cabinet face, and that wraps up this project.